All right. Did have some news updates, though, if you want to hop into it.
I do.
All right.
No rest for the wicked. So let's go.
That's
There,
true.
I think, is your screen with a slight touch better.
There we go. That looks good. So first thing that I wanted to share is Benoit over at the System Center Dudes, based on some feedback from MMS Flamingo Edition, updated the very popular operational config manager collections script that he's put out for several years now. I believe that he added about 6 new collections. Let's see in his changelog here. Yeah, collection 149 through 155. I did verify one of them was for Windows 11 24H2. So I suspect that many of these were version collection updates. But fantastic script if you have not used it before, but you are a config manager user. Recommend having this as a means to sort of report on and deal with collections that are, various things like clients that aren't updated, config manager clients that aren't updated, or specific versions of Windows 10 and 11. You can see here. I wonder if he's got servers in there as well. Yeah, at least a few.
I need to squeeze in a 2022 and a 2025 as well, I think.
Indeed. We'll have to give that feedback. But fantastic PowerShell script nonetheless. Happy to see that updated, actually. All right. Had a couple of other things that I came across of what appeared to be quite useful things. Adam and Nathan were going back and forth a little bit here on Twitter about onboarding macOS devices into Defender for Endpoint. And the steps that Adam had were significant, 10 plus steps. But Nathan here, who I finally got to meet at MMS Flamingo, fantastic dude, always putting stuff out into the community, very thoughtful and willing to stop and talk through things, just fantastic. Anyways, Nathan said there is actually a better way to onboard your devices, to deploy the MDE agent and onboard your Mac OS devices into MDE. So I wanted to share this as well. Essentially, the Microsoft documentation shows there are several different settings that you have to create and apply to the devices. And the documentation shows that you have one single setting in 10 plus different policies. From a management standpoint, might be a little challenging to keep up with. So Nathan mentioned that you can do that all in one single profile. And then there were some additional improvements that they had on their GitHub, that Microsoft has on their GitHub. So I wanted to share this out there for those of you that are managing Mac OS. This seems to be very useful. Also had some great conversation on Twitter yesterday. So after probably, 10 years away from having a MacBook, I picked one up over the weekend because you and I often get questions around Macs, Johan, and neither one of us, it's not really our bread and butter. We've sort of been Windows management guys. So I picked one up to start testing out a couple of basic things, platform SSO, and some very basic Intune stuff. I'm not shifting my focus by any means, but the reason that I bring that up is I had a question out on Twitter yesterday for using macOS in a lab or managing macOS in a lab. In production, chances are you're going to have Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager, which when your organization purchases an Apple device, it will automatically go into Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager, and then automatically can sync over to your MDM of choice, whether that's Intune or Jamf. But to have either one of those programs, you actually have to have what's called a DUNS number. in order to identify yourself as a legal entity business. So I asked on Twitter, what are some of you out there doing? Asked, and had some great responses from Uger and Dean Ellerby and Adam Gross. Stephen responded, and ranging from, well, you can do most of the things you need to do in a lab, like deploy applications through Intune, or use Platform SSO just through user enrollment through the company portal on macOS. But a couple like Adam and Steven actually recommended registering a business and to be able to go through that end-to-end product. So I did want to call that out just because even though we're Windows guys, you and I are predominantly home lab guys too, huge proponents of it, right?
I saw someone that built a cluster with 4 of the new Mini Macs or Mac Minis, whatever they're called.
Yeah.
Connect them together with Thunderbolt 5 cables and got some fantastic AI calculation performance out of that little cluster
Wow.
with those devices. And I've seen people before building Windows cluster with like Intel NUC devices and stacking them up in a little rack and whatnot. So that had me intrigued. Like that is actually pretty cool.
Oh, absolutely. I'm really excited for it because not only can I do the macOS management stuff that I want to look at, but you've been working with ARM devices recently, and I don't have any Windows ARM devices here. Kind of can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. At least now I have a Windows ARM OS, so pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to House that I work with, and he also bought a Mac for his development. So he ran Windows on ARM in a VM on that Mac, and he says the performance is just fantastic. And I know you tried something as well, just spinning up a Windows VM. So
Yeah, exactly. Install Parallels and basically click new Windows VM, and in a couple of minutes you have a new Windows VM. It's pretty cool.
all right. So what you're really saying is I should probably find an excuse to acquire such device.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably only the 4th time you've heard me talk about Macs in the last week, so
more or less, yes.
I've been dropping my hints regularly. Not so much hints when they're right in your face.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So, anyways, long story long. Mac OS Lab, awesome. Yes, you can do that if you have Mac OS and want to lab some of these things in Intune. Also, not sure if you. This might have come out after last week's office hours, so I'm not sure if you were able to mention this last week, Johan, but there was a hotfix release for ConfigMgr that is meant to fix a couple of CMG issues. I know, is this the right one? Maybe this is the right one here. Yes, sorry, this is the right one. So not just CMG, but there was the CMG update that came out previously, but you can see there are a couple of other issues on CMG content that were resolved. But Johan, I know you were saying that peering from the CMG is still not fixed.
Still up in the air. They managed to introduce some fun features in 24.03 of ConfigMgr that we've been promised will be fixed in 24.09. So I have been holding out for 24.09 for a good while. But that one is apparently a little bit delayed. But we'll see. We have Ignite around the corner starting next week. So maybe they are hitting the release then. One can hope.
Let's hope so, because I was just going to say 2409 if I check my watch.
Yes, it is November, but it's still the right year, so that counts.
That's right. Are you saying there's still hope? There's still a glimmer of it.
Still a glimmer of hope, yes, sir.
All right, perfect. So those were most of the things that I wanted to touch on. Do you want to hit some more news on your end first, Johan, or should I talk about the post that we had on the community?
Do the post, and I can combine mine into one sweep.
Okay, Perfect.
So sit down, relax, have some coffee.
There you go. By all means, you put in all the work last week, so you get a little break. So here's what I'm referring to. We had a question from Benny over here on the ViaMonstra community that we've been talking about. Fantastic. We're really starting to get some great engagement, especially over the last week. So I'm very happy to see that. But Benny asked about it when I'm using Intune, what is the best way to configure the semi-annual channel for M365 apps updates? And there was a comment that the cloud update solution in the M365 apps admin center no longer has the option of pushing out the semi-annual channel. And that is correct. So the first thing that I would recommend is rather than going to the current channel, because I do see Benny mentions that he'd like to keep most of the organization on semi-annual and only some on current. Well, Microsoft has been for about 2 years now trying to guide us towards the monthly enterprise channel. And that is what I would recommend if possible in your organization. At least with the monthly enterprise channel, you're going to get updates once a month, typically on like Patch Tuesday, as opposed to current, where you get updates at least once a month. They could be more frequent. So I would recommend going to the monthly enterprise channel first and foremost. As you mentioned here, Benny, you can see that most of the tools are guiding us that way. And there have been some updates and messages in the M365 admin center that have been saying as much for a while now. So that said, that's typically how I am configuring updates in the organizations that I'm part of, is through the M365 Apps Admin Center and just using the monthly enterprise channel. I do not use current very much at all, and semi-annual is more akin to like Windows LTSC, which Microsoft has not been recommending for. Gosh, how long ago was it that Windows 10 LTSC came out? I guess probably 2015.
No, it was called LTSB first.
That's right.
And then they changed it to LTSC. It must have been 2016 or something.
That's right. But even then, when those were released, the recommendation was if you can avoid them.
Stay away from them unless you really have a business case for it.
Exactly. So beyond that, I would recommend there is there is some Microsoft documentation around changing the update channel for your devices. Now, some of these you're probably already going to know. We've been mentioning the M365 Apps Admin Center. You can update the channel with ConfigMgr, with group policy, even the Office deployment tool. If you want to use Intune, you do have to create administrative templates in Intune to do that. I did not get to check and see if semi-annual channel is available in there. I would expect it to be. But beyond that, you may actually have to get a semi-annual channel deployment out using the Office deployment tool, because in the config.xml there, you can still configure the semi-annual channel. So I will post this as well. But if you can, Benny, recommendation is definitely to move to the monthly enterprise channel. Not going to give you as many headaches as the current channel, and you're still going to get more frequent security updates than you would on the semi-annual channel. So if you can do that, that's where I would head. But I will be sure to add this in here as well. All right. That's what I've got for now.
All right. I noticed that Michael Niehaus sent a comment in here. He is also waiting for a new ConfigMgr version. And in fact, not just one version, or actually two versions, because let me show you this one. the technical preview is expiring, and well, you need to upgrade to a new version to have it not expire. So hopefully the team will release one of those also, so you can keep our technical preview labs up and running. So
Let's hope so.
yeah, otherwise it's export import, no fun before it expires. But all right. I had a few things, so I'm going to go ahead and steal the screen when I find that little button.
Steal away.
Yes, sir. All right. So first of all, I stumbled across something I thought was really cool. I was playing around with remediations in Intune, and I stumbled across this beta command that actually gives you the state of remediations. I was working with a customer where we, based on a remediation, the success or failure of it, we're adding devices to groups. So we knew that devices had passed the validation or remediation, and then we would also add them into a group. Without touching the client side. So we can have this script running on a server somewhere, and probably an Azure function too, but we just ran it on a server. But that was just a sidebar. I just thought it was pretty cool that command that exists. I haven't tried it before, so that was a happy surprise. Now, what I wanted to show you in terms of news was that our friend over at Get Rubik's finished up today the grand final of a long 8-part journey on how to get started with Intune. So if you haven't been following this blog series, I highly recommend it. It's not too much to read, short, sweet, to the point, and many of the topics that are discussed in this little 8-part journey is also part of the YouTube channel that is maintained there. So just want to share this one out. Thought it was pretty cool. Then we had another question on the community. So for those of you that are fairly new to our office hours, we did open up a community earlier this year. This is where you can post questions that we will discuss and bring up also in office hours, but of course also answer in the community. But if you cannot join us for whatever reason, live, for example, people in Europe don't usually want to stay up until midnight just to catch up on office hours. For those of you that does, I'm forever grateful. I can see that Dean was joining us earlier. It's close to midnight over there, so thank you for joining. But this is where you can post questions and whatnot. And the question that came in was around speeding up imaging. So the question was, all right, I have a lot of driver packages. How can I make that go faster? Well, the easiest solution to that one is simply create Vim files of those driver packages. So if I go to my ConfigMgr server here, you can see I have no driver packages. Don't use this one. But I have packages with drivers because there is a difference. Legacy packages gives you much more control of the process. You don't have to import drivers. You don't bloat your database. And if I take one of these device drivers or driver packages and open up the data source for it, you can see that just a single Vim file in that package. And when I open that Vim file in 7-zip, this is where you see that the content is just a regular driver packet with audio, video, NIC drivers, etc. And interesting enough is the size different also. That Vim file is about 1 gig. Uncompressed, it's about 2.5 gigs. And obviously, it's way quicker to download 1 gig, a single file, compared to a 2.5 gig of content and tons of small files. So the question was, okay, how do we create these packages? I happen to be a big fan of this particular PowerShell script. It is a tool. It's available in an exe file, but it is really a PowerShell script. And Maurice Daly, who is the author of the tool, he has also released the PowerShell script. So if you're interested in how to build a fairly complicated UI in PowerShell, well, there you have your example. But I like this tool. I like this script. you simply select the models that you want. You make sure to, in the ConfigMgr settings, select to create Vim files. There are other options as well, but Vim files is simply the best format. So you collect the models you have and you click download and then take a coffee break. And when you come back, you have a bunch of packages, Vim files. If you have existing stuff that you don't want to use this tool for, by all means, you can just open up a little PowerShell prompt and it can be as simple as this. Specify a folder where you have some stuff. Specify a temp folder. Copy the stuff over to the temp folder and generate a Vim file. Technically, I wouldn't have copied over from to a temp folder, but I happen to like to do that because often my drivers, they're all on a remote file share somewhere, so you should copy them down before creating the Vim file. But this is really the magic. Single command line takes a folder, generates a Vim file, and then you have the package. Now, the second part to that question is, okay, how do you tell the sequence to use it? Well, also PowerShell. So if I go to a ConfigMgr sequence, can take my 23H2 here. Yeah, use this to specify variables. This is a user count that you need to have grant read access in ConfigMgr, and then you run a script. This script is part of the download, and this script figures out what package it needs and downloads and extracts the content, or mount the content and copies it. So it's being injected during deployment. So that allows you to have, you don't have to modify your sequences just because you need to add in support for a new model. So this is very, very simple setup. Works well, and it's just PowerShell. So if you have features you want to add yourself, by all means, edit the script. Yeah, so that was a little bit of rant of about driver packages, and I see Mike Terrell. I'm going to show that post. Absolutely, winning is winning. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you, Mike, for that one. Very good.